entertained!
Hello and welcome back to the Movie Pope podcast. And today we are going to be doing a reaction to Gladiator II. Now, last week was a pretty eventful week. This trailer came out on Wednesday, Lee, was it? And it's and it's like it's long anticipated because we've been waiting for months for a teaser trailer or even a full trailer to come out, just so we can see where they're going with this. So we're going to go ahead and offer our take on this whole movie, or on this trailer, I should say. And the movie doesn't come out until later on this year. Now, before we dive in, initially I was excited because I am a fan of watching trailers because you never know what to expect. But as I was watching it, I was just thinking, there just seems to be so many things about this trailer that's just making me scratch my head. And I remember texting you, and you were asking, well, I think it was like, well, what's the incentive or what's the motivation for this? And I texted you back saying, well, obviously Ridley Scott wants to see Pedro Pascal in leather. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, you kind of have to ask yourself, why Ridley Scott? Why? Because the slew of films that he's released over the past few years, they haven't done well, I should say. And as much as you want to, shake the guy and just say, hey, you got to knock it off, at the same time, you kind of have to sit, tip your hat off to him, because he just keeps going. Like he's just one of those people who just doesn't realize how bad he is, but he just keeps going. And you're like, okay, like, I can sort of understand his motivation for why he does it. I don't agree with it, but I can understand why he's doing it. You just hope at some point, someone is just going to say, hey, maybe you should just give it all up. Just rest on your laurels. You've done enough as it is. And we've had a pretty in-depth discussion about what's about all the legendary directors like Coppola and Scorsese, who are kind of getting up to that point where it's like, maybe it's time for them to just call it quits, But yeah, without further ado, let's dive in.
It's weird seeing Connie Nelson in it.
I remember that day. I never forgot it. That a slave could take revenge against.
It definitely was not the same actor that played Lucius in the first one.
No.
I never knew a mother nor a father.
You will be my instrument.
Who are you?
King Kong.
Did you hear that?
It was training day whenever I see him in this trailer.
Temple, Rome ever built. The Colosseum. Because this is what they believe in. Power.
I know someone's probably like, oh yeah, they did do that
There are victories yet still to come.
in history, but it's hard to imagine like having the Colosseum flooded like that and have like sharks and shit in there.
Well, the flooding part they definitely did, but the sharks not so much.
Yeah.
The gladiators into free men.
You have something in you. I knew it from the start.
Did you now?
Rage. That rage is your gift.
This is about survival!
It just feels like they want to increase the spectacle of what they just did with the first one.
Yeah, they're taking the page out of 300, aren't they?
Yeah, like
Whose head could I give you that would satisfy this fury?
The entire Roman armies.
Too much.
The general will do.
Rome must fall. I need to only give it a push.
We make it out alive. Alright, alright.
It is awesome to see Denzel, so I will say that at least.
This ring belonged to Maximus. Now I give it to you. What is the dream of Rome? That people are not free.
Because we got to connect to the first one somehow, because it's coming out 2 decades after it.
I will control an empire.
I will not waste another generation of young men for their vanity.
Strength and honor. This how Rome treats its heroes.
Tears on the mausoleum floor. Blood stains the Colosseum doors.
The gods have spoken.
Really going over the top there, I see. I mean, I will say, production design and everything looks really good.
Oh yeah.
I will absolutely give them some credit for that. The production, like, it looks really good. And I like how, there's kind of some interesting things there. Because I remember in the first one, right, we had Joaquin Phoenix's character, like, when he came into Rome. I remember that scene because, like, everything's very bleak and dark in it. And they kind of, like, did a similar sequence in this one in the trailer where, like, they're coming into Rome and everything is, like, very bright and cheery. I'm imagining that there's some reason that Ridley Scott decided to kind of put that in there. I found that kind of interesting to see kind of these two different things with it. But I just can't escape myself from questioning why you would want to make this 20 years after it. Because I did enjoy the first one, right? I liked the first Gladiator. I really enjoyed that. I think Russell Crowe was at his peak at that time. And I think it was a really well done movie. This is like, it feels like you're really grasping at straws to kind of create this Gladiator universe where you're bringing in, Lucius from the first one that I believe they hinted at that was probably Connie Nielsen's character and Maximus, Russell Crowe's child, right? I think they kind of hinted at that was going on. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? Like, didn't they really hint at that?
Yeah, sort of. Because what I find so interesting is the fact that for all of the different actors that they brought into this film, it pretty much follows the same storyline. Because you've got the Roman soldier who's turned into a gladiator. You've got the crazy young emperor who's desperate to do anything to make himself loved, and then you have the politicians and the individuals in the back who are like, yeah, maybe the emperor isn't the best after all, maybe we should do things to kind of foment discontent among the people to turn against the emperor.
Yes, it definitely feels like a retread of something that we already saw in a really good movie. So I just don't see how this is going to improve on anything. It just feels like, to your point, I think that Ridley Scott is a very talented director, but just thinking back to the last movie that I would say I really enjoyed that came from him, I mean, it's probably been, close to 10 years since I saw like a Ridley Scott directed movie that I felt like he generally was good at, and that was probably The Martian, right? I think that was probably the last one that I can safely say that I enjoyed, and that's, nearly a decade ago now. I think that came out 2015, so close to a decade, right?
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, right? Because I think a lot of these other ones, like Napoleon, The Last Duel, that I think he was very feisty about. Like, I remember him just kind of lashing out audiences over The Last Duel and kind of its poor reception. Even trying to, get back into all the alien stuff, I think hasn't quite gotten where it needs to be. But for this movie, it just feels like it's out of place. Like, you have this very weak connection to it because in the first one, I guess spoiler, sorry for anyone that hasn't seen the original Gladiator, over 20 years old. So I guess I will break this to you. Maximus, right? Russell Crowe's character dies at the end of it, right? And it was great, right? It made sense for his character, right? His family was killed. It had a very definitive close to it. So when I saw the title Gladiator II, I'm like, what do you mean Gladiator 2? The character that we followed and we got to enjoy and we felt that we really wanted to be connected to. We saw him and his whole story was over. Like I cannot think of anything more definitive than your main character dying as far as the story goes. And then now you bring this up and it's mind-boggling. So it just feels like, kind of this last-ditch effort to get this movie out for something that to me is, it's just decades late at this stage, in all honesty. So
yeah. I mean, the way I see it is Ridley Scott's trying to, update Gladiator for a new generation, because and we've discussed this before with like other movies like Wonka and Roadhouse and everything like that. I mean, the thing that really pisses me off is the fact that they're trying to take these movies and update them for a younger generation, but they're creating a subpar product. And I'm thinking, really want to introduce, younger people to these movies, just have them watch the original.
Yeah.
You don't need to do an update because it's never going to hold a candle up to the original anyway. So why would you do that? And the big sticking point was when we did that trailer reaction for Wonka, and I remember saying at that time, if you really want people to appreciate that movie, just have them watch the Gene Wilder classic.
Yeah.
I mean, just watch. If you spend all this time referencing, Maximus from the first one, hey, maybe you should just go back and watch the first Gladiator movie and not even bother with that, because it's a close-ended story. It had a beginning, it had a middle, and it had an end. That was it.
Very definitive. No room, no wiggle room.
Well, what I find so hilarious is the fact that they titled it Gladiator II, right? Because they could have given it any name. They've had a long time to plan this out. They could have called it Gladiator Descendant, or Lucius, or whatever, something epic. Because because when you hear a title for a movie called Gladiator, that does have an epic feel to it. Calling it the sequel Gladiator 2, it doesn't. It just takes all of the epicness out of it. You know what I mean? It doesn't have that same that same gravitas that the first movie had, because now it just sounds like like a sequel for a cheesy franchise that's that's saying, hey, there's more to come, just stay tuned for that. And I just feel like just by calling it Gladiator 2, you kind of cheapen the legacy of the first movie.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like you're wanting really hard for people, the audience, just to kind of connect with the original one. That was obviously super well received, won awards. That was everything. So yeah, it just feels like that. Side note, right? How old is Ridley Scott?
He was born in, I think, the 30s, so he's pretty close to pushing 90. Yeah,
86 years old. I did not realize that. So
so he's getting up there.
Yeah, he's been up there for a while now, right? So, but it's just crazy to me. I think that we've seen his best, and I think now it just unfortunately feels like there's a lot of kind of like treading water. And I'm semi interested in it, right? I can't lie. Like I really like these types of productions where you could just tell like it's very grounded, like there's a lot of effort that goes into it. It doesn't feel like a giant CGI mess, or at least not what I saw on that. Then maybe there's more of that later. But I just kind of like how it feels very grounded, but it feels like an epic that just won't really hit the heights of its predecessor, and I think that's just unfortunate that it
because
just feels like a loose tie-in for no reason.
Yeah, because he's pretty much rehashing everything. He's been doing it for for the past 10 years or so. He's been doing it with Alien. He's he sort of did it with The Last Duel, because The Last Duel kind of had Kingdom of Heaven vibes around it, and now obviously Gladiator 2 is just rehashing the first Gladiator movie, but it's with different characters. But even then, they're pretty much doing the same thing. So let me ask you this: how did you feel about Pedro Pascal in this movie? Because he's been in a lot. He's been in a lot of things lately.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to see how much like what his character is and what they want to do with him. I mean, obviously, Pedro Pascal is absolutely at the peak of his popularity, and then some. So the guy definitely has a lot of people in, and I think, I mean, that has to feel like one of the big draws for this is his character. So it's kind of interesting because I don't know how critical of a role he's actually going to have with it. But I guess more will come out of it. I mean, he definitely is at least one of the pulls for it. Plus, like I said, when I was watching the trailer, I do really like Denzel Washington. I know, there's a lot of things out there with him in it, and it's just kind of good to see him back out there. So I'll be curious to see, kind of what his role is. So, but we'll see what happens. Trailer didn't exactly give me a whole lot as far as what their screen time is going to be like.
Yeah, and that's pretty fascinating too, because out of all of the characters, I think Denzel's is going to be the most interesting to watch because he's playing behind the scenes. He's kind of working everybody to kind of accomplish his own goals, but you don't really quite know what he's after. You don't know if he's trying to become emperor himself, or if he's going to put someone up on the throne and kind of pull the strings, from behind.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I think that'll be an interesting thing to watch. So I guess the big question is this a movie that you're going to see in theaters come November, or are you just going to wait until it's available on streaming?
This is one of those things I'll probably wait and see what the initial push is looking like. I think there's some movies where we just feel full confidence with it, like Deadpool Wolverine, which I know before we even, saw any type of like real critical response for, we were kind of ready to watch it regardless of what was coming out of it. I think for this one, I'm definitely more skeptical now. I don't think Ridley Scott, quite has that level of name pull into movies that he once had. Having this be, 2 decades plus from the original one gives me huge pause. So I don't know if I want to see this quite in theaters quite yet until I see what people are saying about it, because it just there's just too many question marks. There's a whole lot of concerns over, why you're trying to bring this back. And to your point, it just feels like we're rehashing the first one. So it's like you're not doing anything unique or interesting. Then why do we want as an audience to go see it? And maybe there is, right? We're just looking at it, critically from, a short 3-minute trailer or whatever. So, we just have to kind of base it upon that. But I'm going to kind of hold out and wait and see what those first wave of responses come out on, and then maybe kind of go forward from there as far as what's going to happen. I definitely will see it eventually, no matter what, just because of what it is. But I don't know if I'm going to be pulled to the theaters like I'm sure Ridley Scott and the rest of the producers are expecting from this.
Yeah, I mean, what I would love to see is what his reaction is going to be once he finds out it didn't pull in the numbers he thought that it would pull in. Because you remember for the last duel, he kind of he started blaming millennials and saying they just don't appreciate it, and I'm like, no, dude, you made a bad movie. Just admit that. You don't need to go around blaming younger people for having the sense to know when they see a bad movie.
Yeah.
But I kind of get the feeling he's gonna do his old man shtick where he's just gonna shake his fist and say, "You young kids, you don't understand a good movie." It's like, I don't think you know how to make a good movie anymore, dude.
Yeah, there's definitely some concerns there. So, but we'll see. Like I said, we got some months here, and maybe this is kind of that last hurrah for him. But there's a lot of things working against it in the grand scheme of everything.
All right, well, go ahead and let us know down in the comments below if you're excited to see Gladiator 2 when it comes out in November. Are you going to catch it in theaters, or are you just going to wait for it to come out on streaming? And do you have any high hopes, or do you think this is one of those times where Ridley Scott should just pack it in? But for the Movie Pope, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.